Ladies and gentlemen, you ever looked at your life and wondered how in the world you were still standing? Like for real, when you take inventory of what you've survived, what you've carried, what you've buried, what you've tried to forget, what you prayed no one ever found out about, and yet here you are. Not perfect, not polished, but present. And baby, being present is a miracle all by itself. There was a time I didn't understand how pain could be part of the process. I thought broken pieces meant I was no longer usable, that I was discounted, that the label damage disqualified me from anything good. But what I didn't know then is that masterpieces are rarely made out of ease. Masterpieces are born in the tension between giving up and getting up. See, people look at you now and they think you've always had it together, but they don't know the nights you had to talk yourself out of a breakdown just to make it to the morning. They don't know you had to be your own cheerleader, your own counselor, your own nurse, and your own pastor just to keep breathing. They don't know that the strength they see now was birthed in silence and isolation. You were walking around with wounds that hadn't scabbed over yet, trying to smile like everything was okay, dressing up your damage, putting filters on your fatigue, learning how to function while fractured. But listen to me. Survival is not your final story. Surviving is just the beginning, because now that you've lived through it, now that you've crawled through that dark place and came out, different, yes, but still alive, now you get to build. You get to rewrite the narrative, not the one they gave you, not the one society stamped on your forehead, not the one your past mistakes tried to trap you in. No, this time you write the story from the inside out, from the place where truth lives, from the place where you finally found your voice. There's something about pain that makes us want to run in there, like it shows up uninvited, sits down in the middle of your joy and dares you to smile anyway. It doesn't care about your timeline or your dreams. It doesn't wait until you're ready. Pain interrupts, it disrupts, and if you're not careful, it'll make you believe that its presence means you've done something wrong. But what if I told you pain isn't a punishment? What if I told you it's part of the process, part of the molding, part of the masterpiece? See, we've been taught that pain is something to avoid, something to silence, something to pray away. And yes, I believe in healing, I believe in restoration, but I also believe there's a reason why the process takes time. Because pain doesn't just arrive to make you hurt. It comes to make you grow. It exposes what you've buried. It presses on the parts you tried to ignore. It's a spotlight on the wounds you've dressed up with perfection and performance. And in doing so, pain has the audacity to bring you face to face with yourself. You can't build strength without resistance. You can't develop resilience without pressure. You can't walk in power if you've never had to rise from weakness. And that's what pain does. It becomes the weight that grows your wings. It becomes the soil where your strength takes root. It becomes the fire that burns away what you never needed, so what's real can finally rise. Some of the greatest transformations happen not in comfort, but in crisis. Some of your deepest wisdom came from the moments you thought would break you. You didn't ask for the heartbreak, but it taught you discernment. You didn't choose the betrayal, but it sharpened your vision. You didn't want the loss, but it taught you how to appreciate presence, how to love deeper, how to listen harder. And if you trace the pain, if you really sit with it, not to wallow, but to understand, you'll start to see how it redirected you, redefined you, reintroduced you to the parts of yourself you didn't even know you were missing. There's beauty in being broken open, because when the old version of you cracks, when the pieces scatter, there's space for the real you to emerge. There's room for authenticity, for truth, for healing. that doesn't cover but uncovers, that doesn't pretend but purifies. Pain has a way of stripping away what's false. It exposes the people who were only there for the good times. It reveals the habits that kept you bound. It shows you the lies you believed about yourself, and it doesn't do it gently. It doesn't whisper. It screams. It pulls. Becoming is not a moment. It's a movement within you, a slow, sacred unfolding of who you are underneath who you had to be. It's not linear, it's not loud, and most times it's not even visible to anyone but you. Because while the world applauds the arrival, becoming is built in the quiet, in the shadows, in the spaces between one season and the next, where the ground is shaky and the path isn't clear. And that space, as uncomfortable as it is holy. You're not supposed to have it all figured out. You're not failing because you're still working through it. You're not behind because you're still healing. Growth takes time. Real change doesn't happen in a highlight reel. It happens in the places where no one sees you, where you're doing the inner work that can't be posted or praised, where you're learning how to show up for yourself in ways no one taught you. You see, becoming means shedding the layers you picked up just to survive, the people-pleasing, the perfectionism, the silence you swallowed because your voice felt like too much, the fear you dressed up as wisdom, the self-doubt that wore confidence like a costume. Becoming is peeling all that back and getting reacquainted with your core, the part of you that still dreams, the part that still believes, the part that knows there's more, even if you can't see it yet. Some days becoming looks like glowing, other days it looks like grieving. It's a cycle. You rise, you fall, you rise again, and that's not failure, that's formation. It's divine construction every time you choose to stand in your truth, even if your voice shakes. Every time you choose to rest instead of perform, every time you say no to what drains you and yes to what restores you, you are becoming. And no, it doesn't always feel good. Growth hurts, stretching hurts, letting go hurts. But staying stuck in a version of yourself that doesn't fit anymore, that hurts worse. Because eventually your soul starts to suffocate in spaces where you're not meant to stay. That job, that relationship, that mindset, that pattern. At some point you stop asking for permission to evolve and you start giving yourself permission to move forward. The tension you feel, that uncomfortable pull between who you were and who you're becoming, that's proof that you're in transition, that you're growing beyond the limits of what once held you, that you're shedding the old scripts and writing something new. And even if no one else sees it yet, even if the fruit hasn't fully manifested, the root is growing deep, strong, unshakable. Becoming doesn't ask you to be perfect. It asks you to be honest with yourself about what you need, what you feel, what you desire. It asks you to be kind to your process, to your pace, to your pain. To stop comparing your journey to someone else's chapter. To stop measuring your progress by standards that were never meant for your story. Your timeline is not broken. Your progress is not small. Every step, every tear, every breakthrough and breakdown is part of the process. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to change your mind, your rhythm, your circle. You're allowed to say that worked for me then, but it doesn't work for me now. You're allowed to walk away from the version of you that made survival look easy, but never got to experience peace. Because survival is not the goal. Thriving is. Wholeness is. Joy is. And becoming means giving yourself the freedom to pursue all of it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is keep going when you feel stuck. Not because you have all the answers, but because something inside you refuses to settle. That's the voice of your future calling, the voice that says there's more for you, that this in-between space is not the end, it's the middle. And in the middle is where transformation lives. You don't owe anyone the old version of you. You don't have to explain why you're shifting, why you're softer now, or bolder, or quieter, or louder. You're evolving, and evolution doesn't ask for approval. It just requires obedience to the call, to the change, to the healing. And as you become more of who you really are, you'll start to see that not everyone can come with you, and that's okay. What's meant to align with your truth will find you on the other side of your growth. Becoming is choosing yourself in rooms that once made you shrink. It's protecting your peace like it's sacred, because it is. It's speaking life over yourself when your thoughts try to lie to you. It's remembering who you are even when doubt tries to convince you otherwise. And every time you choose truth over fear, alignment over approval, healing over hiding. There will be days when you feel like you're slipping back into old habits, old wounds, old mindsets. That doesn't mean you failed. That means you're human. Growth is not a straight line. It's a dance. Forward, backward, side to side. The rhythm doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be honest. And if you keep showing up, if you keep leaning into the discomfort, if you keep trusting the process even when it feels uncertain, you wake up one day and realize you changed. Not all at once, but slowly, deeply, authentically. You'll realize you speak differently now. You love yourself differently. You no longer tolerate what you once accepted. You no longer chase what you now know was never worthy of you. You no longer beg for what you can build. That's becoming. It's the quiet revolution, the sacred rebellion, the decision to not let who you were yesterday stop you from embracing who you're meant to be today. You are not who you were last year, or last month, or even last week. You are unfolding, you are expanding, and you are allowed to take up space in your own life, to dream again, to believe again. To becoming doesn't require you to be finished. It just requires you to be willing. It's not about glorifying the pain. It's about honoring the process, about recognizing the divine thread that weaves through the chaos. The growth that came from the ground you thought would bury you. The beauty that emerged from what you thought was broken beyond repair. Your story holds all of that. And when you tell it, when you really tell it, you free yourself from the weight of secrecy and step into the freedom of ownership. You are not a victim of your story. You are the author of your healing, the narrator of your redemption. And every day you wake up and choose wholeness over hiding, love over fear, truth over silence. You are writing something sacred, something lasting, something eternal. There comes a moment in your journey when shrinking just doesn't feel right anymore. A moment when you can no longer dim your light to make others comfortable. When apologizing for who you are, what you carry, what you dream becomes too heavy to keep doing. That's the moment you start stepping into your power, not because something within you refuses to stay small. It's a quiet awakening, a shift that says, I can't keep living like I don't know who I am. You weren't born to be invisible. You weren't created to blend in, to water yourself down, to silence your voice for fear of rejection. Your presence has weight. Your words matter. Your vision is valid, and the world doesn't need another version of who you used to be. It needs the bold, present, powerful version of you who's ready to show up fully and unapologetically, even if your knees shake, even if your voice trembles, even if you're still figuring it out as you go. Stepping into your power doesn't mean you have all the answers. It means you've decided to stop letting fear make your decisions. It means you're no longer waiting for someone else to give you permission to be great. You've waited long enough. You've doubted yourself long enough. And every time you chose to hide, every time you lowered your standards just to be accepted, something inside you grew tired. That fatigue, that quiet dissatisfaction is your soul calling you higher. Power isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like choosing peace over performance. Sometimes it's walking away from what once felt like everything because you finally see it wasn't honoring who you're becoming. Sometimes it's telling the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it's asking for help. Sometimes it's setting boundaries. Sometimes it's simply showing up for yourself. That's what real power looks like. Not control, not perfection, but freedom, ownership, alignment. You don't have to prove your worth to people who can't see it. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them misunderstand. You're not responsible for how they perceive your healing. You're responsible for protecting your growth. You fought too hard to get to this version of you, this woman who can love herself even in process, who can speak life over herself even in uncertainty, who knows that her softness is not weakness. There was a time when you didn't trust your own voice, when you second-guessed every instinct, when you bent until you broke just to keep the peace. But now you know better. You know your discernment is a gift. Your intuition is sacred. Your voice is a weapon, not a weakness. And using it is not pride. It's power. It's legacy. It's healing. It's the echo of every version of you that once felt ignored finally rising to be heard. Stepping into your power means you stop waiting for the right conditions to show up. You stop saying, when I'm ready, and start saying, ready or not, I'm going. Because truth is, growth doesn't feel like readiness. It feels like risk. It feels like trying again. It feels like walking into the unknown with nothing but faith in the history of how many times you've made it through. And you are enough. Just as you are right now, flawed, learning, healing, evolving, and still worthy of joy, love, abundance, and visibility. You've been hidden long enough, and not just by others, but by yourself. The way you used to dim your voice in rooms full of noise, the way you used to pretend you didn't need help when your heart was breaking, the way you used to shrink your accomplishments so others wouldn't feel insecure. You've been hiding in plain sight. But there's no more room for that version of you. The season of shrinking is over. You don't need to wait to be more healed, more polished, more put together. Start where you are. Power doesn't require perfection. It requires presence, courage, a willingness to show up in truth, knowing that every time you do, you reclaim a piece of yourself that was lost to fear, and those pieces, they add up. They become wholeness. They become freedom. They become power that is rooted not in pride, but in purpose. You were never meant to play small, not in your relationships, not in your calling, not in the way you love or lead or dream. You were designed to expand, to rise, to disrupt rooms with your presence, not for ego, but because you carry something sacred. You carry wisdom that was earned, not inherited. You carry authority that only comes from walking through fire and choosing not to let it consume you. Stepping into your power means you stop looking for rescue and start recognizing your own capacity, the strength in your story, the lessons in your losses, the treasure in your truth. You stop waiting for someone to discover you and realize you were never lost. You were evolving, you were growing, you were being refined, and now it's your time to be seen, Not everyone will be ready for your glow. Some people liked you better when you were easy to manage, easy to manipulate, easy to overlook. But you're not that woman anymore. And while they're adjusting to your boundaries, your growth, your light, you keep building, keep rising, keep healing, because what's on your life is too big to be held in small places. There's a cost to stepping into your power. It means releasing what no longer aligns. It means grieving the spaces that can't hold the real you. It means being misunderstood, outgrown, maybe even talked about. But the reward is freedom, integrity, joy, peace. The reward is waking up and knowing you are living in truth, that you no longer need to perform for worthiness, that your yes and your no both come. You don't have to wait until you feel fearless to be powerful. Power shows up in action, not emotion. It's built in the doing, in the choosing, in the rising. One step at a time, one decision at a time, one I deserve better at a time. And with every choice you make to honor your worth, you are walking deeper into the life you were always meant to live. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been. Underneath the doubt, beneath the fear, beyond the trauma, the real you has always been there. Fierce, focused, worthy, ready, and now she's rising. Not for applause, not for acceptance, but because staying small is no longer an option. You've walked through shadows most people will never understand. You've carried weight in silence and danced with dreams in the dark. You've survived seasons that try to silence you, break you, bury you, but you're still here, and not just here, but healing, growing, becoming, owning your story, reclaiming your voice, stepping boldly into a version of yourself that once felt out of reach. You've discovered that your life is not a mistake, not a mess, not a side note. It is a master, a living, breathing testimony of grace, grit, and glory woven together in ways only divine design could orchestrate. You've learned that the becoming doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the secret places, in the stillness where you met yourself without the masks, in the broken places where you found strength you didn't know you had, in the painful moments that became sacred ground for transformation. And now you carry that truth, not as baggage but as power, not as shame but as story, not as something to hide, but as something to share. So walk boldly, speak clearly, love fully, and live freely, because this life, your life, is not random. It is not too late. It is not too far gone. It is handcrafted, intentional, necessary. It is your offering, your legacy, your art. And no matter what it has looked like, it's always been a masterpiece. My name is insert name, and this is my life, God's masterpiece.